So I wanted to like chat a bit with you because now we are doing a lot of prep work for migrating development to .com. But we kind of have to do two things in one go, because now with this CD process, things became extremely more difficult. And the situation was already complex with, the development on two places. I'm sorry I gave you this document only recently, and this was just like a brain dump of what was in my head, so that we have something, to talk through. But basically, from my understanding of the confidential merge requests, it is a very simple feature, right? Like it goes from a confidential issue, you can create a merge request using that button. Sorry, rather branch using that button. It uses it in your fork. Fork needs to be private. And what was the other thing? No, that's it, right? Like that was the feature.
It's a pretty simple starting point. I expect we need more iterations and maybe other features that are separate to this to make this work well. But so I didn't want to plow ahead with a theoretical solution until we...
No, that makes sense. No, totally makes sense. I just want to give you like an idea, an overview of kind of challenges. We chatted about this some time ago, but something changed for the worse, unfortunately, because of the new process, right?
Well, let's make things harder, not for the worse. Like continuous deployment's a good thing.
True. No, true. I used the wrong word there. Yeah, it made it harder for sure. But another thing that made things more complicated is our scaling up as a company, right? So now we have even more engineers. So what used to be like 50 MRs to review and merge and port, now it moves to 150, 200 when you add backports, which is it's not scalable. Like we cannot scale. Like if we continue doing things like we are doing right now, we will have to have either delivery only handling releases and nothing else, or having a completely separate team that is going to only do releases, which is not impossible or unrealistic to expect, but I think we can do better. Let's go. Like I want to run you through just from the developer's perspective how this looks, and then I want to run you through how this looks from our perspective when we actually need to cut a release. So first of all, that like everyone is working on .com publicly, and when you're set in that workflow, switching context to do security releases, even if it's only like, okay, now you need to work on dev, it is extremely complicated because you have this automation in your fingers, right? And you're going to push a branch as soon as you get an issue, for example. So that automatically has a chance of exposing things. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is you go through the regular process of the review and everything that goes through it. But the difference is the reviewer doesn't go and merge your merge request when it's ready. It has to sit until the release can be ready. In some cases,
which point are we on in the agenda doc?
This is security release scale we do every month.
Okay,
so that's what I'm talking about. So you target master, but the reviewer doesn't merge it. He or she reassigns it to a bot, and then it can sit for a month until we are ready to grab to prepare this release. Right? I'm talking about non-critical patches. So imagine the context switch now.
Can I just clarify?
Always.
I've not done one of these myself. So the merge request is created targeting master and not merged and assigned to a bot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Huh. Interesting. So then at the time the security release is cut, is master brought up to previous release and then everything is merged? And I imagine potentially there's all sorts of unresolved conflicts, because if you've got 150 security merge requests, someone's going to merge first, and then someone else is going to have to deal with like an unforeseen conflict that wasn't there. I mean, there could be conflicts introduced by just fast forwarding master forward because things change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the alternative to this is release as soon as you have something. That would be great, but we don't have the resources. First of all, we don't have the people, we don't have the tooling, we don't have anything to do something like this. And it would also mean, with the amount of security reports coming in, that we would have to do security release every week, and probably a couple of them, because there is no sequence. Like this, like security fixes are completely out of sequence from anything we do at the company. It would be ideal if we would be able to like merge and deploy to .com and then release that snapshot of the day, but it doesn't work like that. We have customers also managed who can't do this. And
that would be a huge challenge, like for any sort of company to keep up with, because essentially by releasing every day, closing new vulnerabilities a day, which could be problematic.
Yeah, and we can also like have this requirement from security that we cannot mix non-security and security fixes in public releases. So we do need to bundle them into one go in order to release, a security release which only contains security fixes. So for .com, that does not matter. So CD there is fine with it. But then we cannot do snapshot of whatever we ship on .com. We cannot do a snapshot of that and say this is self-managed release because it might contain security fixes. Oh. Yep. So now you're seeing the problem already, right? Imagine now that the developer a month later coming in and we have edge cases like this where the backports merge cleanly, but the master doesn't merge cleanly. Or there are even sillier things where master merge request merges cleanly, but one of the backports doesn't. Now, what we need to do is go and hunt down whoever did this to fix this, because we don't have the time or the knowledge to fix all of those, which makes it into, a security release that would take a day to release, sometimes can be a week. During that time, everything stops. Because as soon as we merge, that means public repositories diverge from our private repositories and things accumulate. So as soon as things start accumulating, we are running against the clock. Because the longer it takes for us to sync private and public repositories, the bigger the pain is going to get.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
How many all the security fixes queue up until preparing security release? How many merge requests go into a security release generally? Do you have a rough ballpark? It's like 150?
I don't have a rough ballpark, but let's check it out. We had a security release just recently, so I can find out, like, for example, how many GitLab security release. So we do 3 backports, so 3 releases backports.
Yeah.
That means 3 releases times CE plus EE.
6 releases.
Okay, that's 6 releases. So that's 6 times the merge requests. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23 fixes went out in the last security, non-critical security release. So 23 times 6 is the amount of merge requests that we had to handle this release. That is, so it's 3 times 6, but then also plus 23 because we had to do 23 merges into master.
So yeah.
So it's scaling up.
There's 161 merge requests.
It's trending up as well, right? Like not because we have way more vulnerabilities to handle, but because we can handle more because the teams are growing, right? Well, yeah. I guess also because we have more, because we are growing as well. So, so that's problem number one. Problem number two, I already mentioned to you, keeping everything private until the public announcement. If one thing leaks, depending on its severity, we either need to rush whatever we have out, or we do some magic to go and delete the branch, delete the activity feed. We go into the Rails console, and like it gets extremely messy. So
but if someone's actively looking at us to make this mistake, there's no way we can clean it out before they've. All it would take is that person to be like mirroring the GitLab repository at a minute frequency, and they would get everything. Like there's no way we would clean it out in under 60 seconds.
Nope. That's the nature of public. Exactly. That's the nature of public. So, simple solution, let's work in private. That's not going to work here.
That was what I was going to ask is like, this is like the public by default debate.
Yep.
Versus private. Because so I remember we discussed this a little bit, but I think I discussed it with Nick and put it on an issue and was discussing with some security people. But if we are public by default, there is no way to prevent stupidity, or human error. Yep. We are even if we put some sort of confirm on every push, it's like you're pushing a new branch. Like you have to use this special push rule that confirms it's public. Like all it takes is one person to alias that, and then it's like the whole value of that's gone. Like there's literally no way to sort of guard against this in a guaranteed fashion where we can actually provide some sort of, confidence. Like it's always going to come down to human error.
Yep.
So
if you scroll all the way down, I don't know
what to do on this.
If you scroll all the way down, issue 350 that I linked, we have a proposal to enforce certain number of rules in GitLab and say you have to name your branches in a certain way. So say everything that is security has to be security / everything that's a feature / everything that is a bug /. So you have to have like a conscious effort of writing this down. Everything else gets rejected. Now, this is an option that I didn't push yet, but I'm going to start working on and proposing going further, because we are at that size right now where we have to enforce something. Like it is nearly impossible.
I like this approach because I think it's a good compromise between like enforcement and it's a relatively cheap check to do, the branch name. So it's not going to have like negative performance impacts. I don't think it's particularly, problematic. I use this kind of naming scheme myself for branches so that I can find things. Like I prefix things feature / Ramsey / my thing. So like treating them like folders. And I've always thought it would be great if we did this internally. And we could imagine automatic labeling based on branch name. That'd be super cool.
That would be really awesome. But we need to think about forks. How do we do with forks? Like that is my main concern, because we need to make sure that we don't block any action from community there. Theoretically, there is nothing to go wrong there because they're pushing to their branch and they're submitting their branch to us. But we need to kind of consider the edge case there if there is one. We didn't go that far yet. But that is solving one problem only.
The issue I can think of there is not so much public community contributors, but internal contributors who use forks. I encourage, and there's a number of people in my team that actively use forking because it's critical that we use it, and dog food forking. So the issue there would be that those internal team members that use a forking workflow would then bypass all the checks.
Absolutely.
And that's a risk.
Yep. Unless we institute that everyone needs to not use forks, which is, I think, not okay, because we have the forking workflow.
Yeah.
Which is a valid workflow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't see any good generic solution to this.
Nope. Nope. We spend a lot of time thinking about this and writing it down and talking about it, and now we're at the crossroads and we need to do something about it. So that's like the two things that I wanted to highlight. And the third one, sorry, go ahead.
This is a good iteration. Like, even if there's edge cases, like this is an iteration that gets us 90% of the way there.
I think it has to happen. We have too many people now. I don't see anything else. So let me talk about the challenges with CD now on GitLab.com.
Mm-hmm.
We have this situation where things are just continuously going in. And we now have this timing problem of everything that we wanted to prep for the security release and backports is ready. We need to merge and tag. That is all great. And it goes through the process of QA with security and others. But now we need to ensure that we dump those changes in master so that we can pick it up to .com. And we need to ensure that those changes get into .com before we are ready to publish the release, right? We cannot have the .com being vulnerable when we publish the releases. Now, the problem is, because of this mix of you have features, bugs, whatever else, plus security fixes, blah, 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 there is always a chance, and we had it a couple of times already, where a P1 bug in master is preventing us from proceeding further. Now, you say like, okay, well, we revert and it's fine. Well, sometimes it's not that easy, because I think last time we had a merge request that changed data structure and we couldn't revert, but it had a P1 or rather S1 impact. So we kind of had to wait for that one, which delayed the security release, which then delayed us deploying all of those things in .com. So we have this cat and mouse game where one depends on another and the timing is everything. And automating this thing is nearly impossible at the moment, at least. So that is the overview of the problem. Let me move this item further up, because I already gave an overview of confidential merge requests. And yeah, one
big problem with the deployments is that there's not really a single source of truth anymore, right? If you have a single source of truth and master is read, like there's one place you need to block, and that's like a tractable problem. But then if you've got like, oh no, also this other private fork needs to be blocked, and it's not really blocked, it's only blocked from doing this one kind of thing, which is how we do deploys. Also, are we deploying from the public repo, or are we deploying from the private repo? Because does that mean we're deploying from multiple locations?
We are only deploying from a private repository, but public and private repository are using the mirroring feature, which means that's why I told you that we diverge. So as soon as something is merged into the private repository, public is no longer the source of truth. Now it's only this. So it's now up to us to get those changes that are in the private repository back to public and like sync them up so they are in sync. Meanwhile, as soon as that happens, as soon as divergence happens, public is way ahead. As soon as it happens, right? Because all of the development is there. And that's why I mentioned that the longer this takes, the longer they are diverged, the bigger problems we have with merging them together. And I'm not even gonna talk about CE and EE because we are really close to single code base next week, I think. So we need to resolve this for right now, this one repository. Well, components.
Can I ask, when they diverge, how bad are the conflicts?
It really depends on what gets merged into master in the meantime. In 90% of the cases, conflicts are manageable, human manageable, at least, if nothing, like we need to find someone who's going to help us. Automatically resolvable, unlikely. Like I haven't seen a chance where when it clashes, like when there is a merge conflict, I haven't seen a case where we could automatically resolve it somehow.
Yeah. I wonder, so I think I proposed on a number of occasions, like some way of like automatically merging the changes into the replica, the private repo from the public repo. So to prevent them diverging, like, and keeping up, like, if they can keep up, keeping them in sync. I wonder if it would change things if we could know in the merge request in the public repo if it was going to cause a conflict with the private one. Like if you could say that this is like a confidential pair. So like if you have like a, I don't know what you call it. Like rather than mirroring, you call it like it's like a different form of mirroring. It's like these mirrors.
You want me to tell you? Like, I know what you're aiming at because we have something for this. So we have this project called Merge Train. It's very simple and naive. What it does is it clones two repositories. So we use it for syncing CE to EE. You might have seen it in action. But basically what it does is it prefers EE as a source of truth and picks all the conflicts resolution in favor of EE. So merge strategy, ours is EE, I think. So what happens is we have process in place to say that if you have a CE merge request that has an EE conflicting change, possibly a EE conflicting change, you need to submit an EE counterpart, merge that first, merge CE then, and merge train just collects those changes without any conflict. So the idea we had, my team is still not up for this, but we're gonna have to try something. It's what if we say that instead of mirroring, we use the merge train project, and it will take public repository as one source of truth and private as another. Private would always win because it has security fixes in it. Yeah. So constantly pull from there. And if you have changes that conflict in public, it's all manual for now. If you have changes that conflict in public, you need to submit a fix into the private repository first, get that merged, and then merge the public one. So theoretically, with that, we would be able to have this not really sync, because it's not really sync, it's actually merge. Yeah. And one major issue we've had so far is when someone does not follow that process, EE wins, but then there is a chance of breakage. And we only catch it when the specs run, if specs cover it. We only catch it if the QA runs, if QA covers it. We only see it in production, basically, when there is like a larger problem. We had 1 or 2 occasions, I think, of that happening.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me link you the merge train, because it's really nothing complicated. It's literally a shell script that runs a merge between 2 repositories.
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Right? Like this is exactly what you were trying to say.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like on a per merge request basis, make sure that it can be picked without conflicts and just pick it. And so, I mean, this seems like the perfect thing to somehow dog food into GitLab, like, and natively build it in. It's kind of like a version of mirroring, but it's doing something a little bit more sophisticated. It's like mirroring. Like it's like preventing two forks from diverging. It's not like syncing, but it's like keep them I don't know what we'd call it. Like it would be the hardest feature to name because we can't call it merge train because we've already got a merge train.
I linked to an image that Yorick created. Multi-track drifting.
Yeah,
that's in the README.
That's awesome. I love it. Go Yorick. Cool. I'm just trying to think, where does that leave us? So we got the proposal to have push rule to enforce branch name. I think we already have push rules that support a regex.
We do.
So no feature required, just works.
Nope. Just process change, which is one of the hardest things you can do in the company.
Oh my gosh. We've already got merge train, right? So in theory, we could just use that as it is.
Merge train as in?
That script that you just linked.
The script. Yeah, okay. Just want to make it clear.
Multi-track merge or merge.
Multi-track merge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that. Prevent repositories from drifting or whatever. Like it's kind of like it's like linking two branches and saying these two branches shouldn't drift across forks. It's like.
So we have related merge requests and related branches. Why not have related issues? Why not have related branches?
Yeah, where they like, yeah. I don't know if, related branches. Yeah. Stop related branches from drifting. Yeah, interesting. I'm going to have to like create an epic for this. Trying to think what challenges we have left. We've still got the number of merges, right? So like the multi-track thing, that merge train script is only going to solve the master problem, right? Actually, and it doesn't even solve the master problem fully, because how do you cut the release? Because you've still got the problem of like what we get to GitLab.com is one thing, which the merge train script solves, but the security release thing is like, that's
right. But with security releases for tagged releases, so for self-managed customers, the difference is that we can kind of timing there is running slower than in master. In master, it's like right then and there. Stable branches, we can say like, okay, we cannot ship anything until we clear out the stable branch, right? Like that's not the problem. We can get it done. The problem is when you combine these two things, you kind of put all the problems on the developer, who now needs to think about these two separate things, even though in their head it's only one thing. They're fixing one problem, right? So we have a problem of developer fixing things, and we have a problem of us releasing in two different places. But for stable branches, it's a bit slower, you know?
Yeah. So in this world, like with all these things turned on, the GitLab.com development stream would be nice and fast. Conflicts would be resolved before they actually happen. Like they'd be detected and prevented. They'd sort of step forward at like co-equal sort of rate. So then the challenge would be taking on the stable branch, essentially going and then replaying some merge requests onto stable branches somehow. so like at the point that you run a security release, you want to replay them in a certain order. And then every time you hit a conflict, then it's call the developer, get them to fix it. I think the challenge with that is like, well, I guess you've only got 23 fixes, right? So, well, that's still a lot. So let's say the developer who made the security fix, what do we have, like 5 days to prepare the security release, something like that?
Theoretically, we have 2, but it's usually 5 days.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just thinking, like, if you've got, say, 25 merge requests to replay and onto each release, and assuming there's conflicts on a bunch of those, I mean, the odds of getting that done in a couple of days is pretty slim, because every time there's a conflict, someone has to go and resolve it, run CI pipelines, run the whole regression. I mean,
yep.
Assuming they are a genius and they fix it first go, you're still talking like a minimum of like 2 to 3 hours to like, well, no, you're still longer than that, because you've got to like run the pipeline, which is like an hour and a half or whatever. Then you've got to, then it fails, at which point someone knows they need to fix it. Then they have to write the fix, say they do that in an hour, and then they have to run the tests again, and then it merges. So you're talking like a minimum of like 3 hours of CI tests plus an hour to fix. So you're talking like a minimum of 4 hours if anything breaks. I mean, gosh, like you'd be lucky to get 2 conflicts resolved a day because it's serialized. Even if everyone's like working on this with focus, you can't.
I mean, obviously for our company's benefit, and I know that Remy is working on this, for our company's benefit is that our CI pipeline runs under half an hour, right? Like you imagine how much productivity that brings in. But that productivity, it's still.
I've been on that thread and raised with Remy that I think half an hour is like a good goal, but like it's nowhere near ambitious enough to actually get to the velocity we want. Like we need a way to run like a comprehensive set of tests in 5 minutes.
I know. I agree, but we are at 2 hours now, and I would kill for half an hour. To tell you.
Remember like a year and a half ago when we got to half an hour?
I do. That was insane.
Oh dear. All right. Gosh. Okay. Well, I don't know that there's any practical solution to that one besides making the pipelines faster. Like if you replay them in anything but the same order, maybe that's not true. Maybe you could get lucky and have commits that you could replay in different order. Like imagine if we went to master and we replay them, and well, this would be an amazing feature for someone to build. It tries to replay them, and if it hits a merge that fails, it tries the next thing, and it sort of works out like which ones it can continue. Maybe even just a naive approach where it just skips that, tries the next one. If the next one fails, then it completely bails.
Yeah.
But like, if you have one failure and the next one succeed, you just keep going.
Yeah. That would be amazing. Yeah, and we would also have to then enforce that everything is rebased to make sure that we don't have like too many commits coming from, like a merge request that has like 10 commits, for example. I don't know what we enforce at the moment, but, like having one commit and like just skipping that would skip the whole bug fix or a feature, rather than like within that one bug or a feature, you would have like 5-10 commits.
Yeah, I mean, because we use merge commits, we just walk the merge commits, and so
we're not
cherry picking every commit. We're just cherry picking the merges.
True.
Just follow the left, stay left. All right. I think there's probably some automation needed to sort of like handle that replay, and then if it hits a failure, working out how to resume. Like, so once that issue is the conflict is resolved and merged, like we want it to automatically start replaying.
Yep.
It's an interesting. I'm trying to work out if there's a general use case for this, because like that's a very specific kind of feature. I'm not sure if I'm not convinced that it's like a dog foodie feature up front. Yeah.
I mean, that's up to you to figure out. I'm trying to resolve a problem on a different scale, right? And
I just want to think about it a little bit, seeing as
well, you'll have this recording, so you can think about it all you want.
This what else have we got? Like, so if we built a script that did that replay onto the release branch, we used the merge train script, we used the branch regex rule. Sounds like we're getting pretty close.
We're improving the situation significantly. I'll tell you that much. Now, we still can't use forks. We still can't use confidential merge requests. That's the problem, because it moves from a single source of truth to n sources of truth, basically, because of the forks.
So the idea was that the confidential merge request would actually be targeting the shared private fork. So rather than everyone having their own confidential fork, there would be one private fork, right? Which would be the one that is like the security source of truth. So
we can work with that.
Forks is just like to make it generic, but essentially the way I envisioned it would be that I wouldn't have a private fork. There would be the GitLab org private forks. There's like the public group and then the private group, and everyone would have access to both. And so any developer that gets added to the GitLab org one would then inherit access to the private one. And then any confidential merge request, by default, I would see the drop-down pre-filled with the private fork that already exists.
We already have that, by the way, because that's the same idea. I just didn't think of it that way. So I don't know, for whatever reason. Well, actually, I know why I didn't think of it that way. Because confidential merge requests didn't exist at that moment. Yeah. We created that group, and we have projects in there. So if we recreate those projects now with a fork relationship and set them to be dependent on one another, we can already use the confidential merge request.
Yeah, you can create the fork relationship with an API. You don't have to recreate the projects.
Okay, great, perfect. So that's one thing. Then we have another challenge, which is we will need to make sure that the fork is now becoming, the security fork is now becoming our source of truth, which would mean that we would probably have to use the merge train script to sync from the public to the security fork. My question to you would be, who wins and how do we inform, and like what kind of process do you think we can build when the script fails? Let me explain. Someone needs to win if we are using the merge train script, right? Like we have to choose the source of truth. If we choose to not fail, but do what we are doing right now with CE and E merges, there is always a chance that we'll break something silently. Alternative option is that we fail loudly, but then this is equivalent of red master, stop the train. This needs to be fixed right away before we can continue. With red master, that is proving to be a bit challenging. And I'm wondering how challenging it would be with it.
So you mean red master in the security release or red master in CE?
In general.
So the issue would be, it looks green in the the check in the CI pipeline, but then when it actually merges, it becomes red.
Yep.
Shouldn't that be avoided by the whole feature that CI built, where it actually runs like the test on a simulated merge commit?
For stable branches, that would work because stable branches are moving slowly. For how's it called? For master.
Yeah.
For master, because master is moving too fast, there is a chance that by the time the pipeline runs and everything is green, master already went up. But I guess this is a discussion about how much risk are we willing to take. If we are willing to say like, this is not going to happen that often, it's probably worth considering it.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is to require a fast forward merge strategy.
You know, we say that we don't want to talk about religion in this company. So
there's a merge request. There's a merge request to change that.
I just don't want to go there because, oh my God, that change is going to be like talking about religion. But maybe if it's necessary, we need to do it, I guess.
I mean, it would be very interesting from my perspective, because there are a number of companies that I know and customers that use fast forward merge requests like for pretty similar reasons, that they have a lot of properties around making sure like when things are green, they're actually green. And that's pretty helpful. But there's a pretty big contention problem that exists, like the timing contention. And I know that I've raised this with the CI team that merge trains really should try and solve this contention problem. Like we built them, but they don't actually work for fast forward merge, I don't think. Yeah. If they did, then the problem would be diminished significantly, because we could like preemptively rebase into the queue. And so you could rebase into your position. You've essentially got like master proper, and then you've got like pending master. And so you can like do like a rebase, run the test, and if it passes, else like rebase fails and you're like kicked out of the queue. But at least that way, like you're like, it's less painful than it is today, where it becomes like a race. Like if we didn't have that feature, if we don't have merge trains for fast forward merge, like this whole thing's not going to work, because we've now got however many 100 engineers merging as fast as they can. And it's just going to be like a race to rebase and run the CI pipelines again. Yeah.
Yep.
Question. I'd like, this maybe is more a Remy question than a you question, but could we just like split up our tests, make them even more parallel, and just throw more compute power? Like, could we just throw money at the problem?
I did that in December. So it was not my problem or my team's problem, but I recognized it as one of the big problems that we have to run faster, or rather to get to CV. And we did that. So we went from 20 to 50 parallel specs, I think. Yeah. And we also threw bigger machines. In some of the pipelines, we had a calculated, we calculated where to target. You only get so much. Like that's like, there are certain, like now maybe with DAG, there is a possibility that things could be speed up. And now Remy, I think, is actually working on this. But we had this order that we needed to follow because specs depended on another one and so on. And I think now Remy is actually like implementing DAG and all of that stuff, like all of the new features that we are using. Hopefully that helps. But actually just parallelizing and throwing more money at the problem only gets you so far. And I think we exhausted that so far back in December.
Okay. So it's, I guess this is not
the
really
next question. The next question is, do we really need to run all of those specs all the time?
Or so the question I was actually going to ask is, what if we had tooling or a way of like quantifying which tests were dependent upon one another? Because ideally, like it should be part of the quality process that there's like a limit on how many how long a test can take. Like if you've got a chain of tests that have to be run in a certain order, like that chain should be no longer than like 60 seconds execution time. Like it should be even less, like 30 seconds execution time. Like we should have really short chains, like tests should be really focused and atomic. It's like if you're depending on specific data already existing, just like declare it, create the situation, then run your test rather than handing it. And then like any new feature or any change to a test would have to like obey these rules. And so we just have to refactor our tests.
Just, yeah.
It seems like that's actually the approach, is we need tooling to prevent the test getting worse, tooling to enforce some new quality standard for tests.
Yeah.
Like that's the actual solution that gets us to an end point in a future state that's going to be good.
I think so.
All right. Wrapping up on action. So maybe we should wrap up on action items.
Let's do that. So what we'll try to do is we'll set up those repositories, which we already have, but we'll set up that link between them so that we can try using the confidential merge requests. We will hook up the merge train script to select security as the source of truth. And this is going to become the repository from which we are going to be doing whatever builds we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
What else did we discuss?
We need to build the, we need to enable the branch name rules.
Yeah.
Which is like workflow
Correct.
change.
Yeah.
And then the other thing would be build the replay script to create the stable, the security release.
Yeah.
This is from private master.
Yeah.
So to do the merge train script, James, I need to like create a dog fooding issue. Epic to build in GitLab. I should create a dog fooding issue about this one as well. To consider.
So here's the thing, James, because our primary concern is making sure that security releases, development of security releases become simpler, and that security releases become simpler to manage from our side as well. However, I do want to make one or two steps with custom scripts, but then work closely with you and your teams to build this back in with the knowledge we acquired. So if this means that it's going to take us like 6 months to build this, it doesn't matter. But as long as you can also allocate some resources, time, people to actually help out when we need to sit down and write the feature, that would be super helpful. Yeah. Otherwise we'll have to do scripts and move on because this is actually, we are at our end with scale. Like we can't do this anymore for much longer, you know?
No, I think, I don't know if this contradicts the conversation you had with Sid, but I think like if there's a problem that's obstructing GitLab and it's going to be faster to do it with scripts, like we should do it with scripts. Like if it's obstructing our ability to execute as an organization, we should just build it.
It actually, it doesn't conflict. You understand that? Perfect. Like it's basically, all right, we recognize the problem. This is the first step. The second step is us working on the scripts because we recognize this is going to take a long time. Yeah. But the third step is bringing this back in together while you're working with us on this. Well, like you're observing what the problems we are observing.
Yeah.
So
and the other thing I think that the other thing that's good about this is I think it gives us a chance to learn. Like there's a degree of uncertainty around like how we're actually going to make this work. Like scripting and automation and APIs and all this sort of stuff is a great way to just test things cheaply without committing and like getting customers relying on a certain behavior that we decide is like not what we actually want. Like it's hard to make those breaking changes. That's much better for us to do prototypes and experimentation in this way.
Yeah.
As long as it comes back in eventually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome.